This is Leave Your Mark. I'm Vince Cortese, and today's guest is Dr. Eddie O'Connor. He is a distinguished professional speaker and clinical sports performance psychologist, renowned for his experience in eliminating performance barriers. His extensive experience expands across diverse realms, including working with athletes on all levels, including artists and musicians. Dr. Eddie's impressive credentials, media recognition, and engaging speaking engagements make him an invaluable resource for those seeking to achieve their peak potential in life. Dr. Eddie, thank you for being my guest here today.
Hey, thank you. I really appreciate it. I'm excited to talk with you.
Hi there, and welcome. Now it's time for America's favorite podcast, Leave Your Mark, with your host, Vince Cortese.
If it's fly, loose fitted, it's Cortese. If freezing, chubbers in it, it's Cortese.
Leave Your Mark is about inspiring the world, one guest at a time.
Pass the word from Brooklyn to Pittsburgh, from urban to suburb, it's Cortese, you heard?
And here is our host, Vince Cortese.
You are a man in motion. I mean, just about everybody in the sports industry wants a piece of you. So, I mean, you're a member of the United States Olympic Committee of Sports Psychology and Mental Health Registries. You're a certified mental performance consultant. You're being quoted in the likes of NY Magazine, CNN, Runner's World. You have accomplished writing. You have a book. But it's before we get into all of that and all the wonderful things you've been doing over the years, I want to share with my audience a little bit about you when you were a youngster. So you're born and raised in the Bronx, New York. It's an interesting place, New York. What is a fond memory of being in New York when you were little?
I have this pride about being from the Bronx. It's almost like that was its own city. And there was a difference between Bronx and Queens and Brooklyn. So I appreciate that pride. I later on moved out to Chicago and I kept that New York pride with me. The busyness, but really, honestly, the melting pot. I just went back for the Bills and New York Jets game for Monday Night Football recently. I went back and I was touched again about how going down the street, there were just these different languages, like 50% of the people were speaking English. The other half was like any number of it. And I've forgotten how wonderful it was to truly grow up in a melting pot and where I was the minority, but every culture was represented, and that diversity was just really outstanding.
Now, your parents, Eddie and Terry, your dad worked a number of jobs at the Imperial House as a doorman, and your mom is a nurse and then a stay-at-home mom. Now, your dad working at the Imperial House, and when you get into these neighborhoods, there's some pretty highfalutin people going in and out of those doors. So share with me something that experience Dad brought home from work.
Yeah, well, really what my dad laid on me was a work ethic. So he's an immigrant from Ireland. He came over when he was 18. And to support his family here, he not only had one job, but two full-time jobs, two buildings, 80 hours a week for 40 years. And one of them, as you mentioned, was at the Imperial House. And so back in the day, when I was a kid, this is like, 30, 40 years ago. But he would talk about and come back and tell stories about Dolly Parton and how he'd give her a big hug and would be like, "Hello, Eddie," and come on in. And he would talk about Howard Cosell. And then, great sportscasters. So that was close to my heart. Lucille Ball, Liza Minnelli. So all these big names that he would just kind of, he was gracious to serve and relate to them. And they would just kind of walk in and out. And he was just a daily part of their life. One of my fondest memories of him was how somebody tried to break into one of the buildings and how he went and he defended the person and chased this other person down the road. So he was more than a doorman. He did some of that security and stuff. And he just had a servant's heart. And I really appreciated that and, take that forward.
It sounds like your mother was like that as well, being a nurse and then working with you kids at home or raising you.
Yeah. My heart really goes out to my mom in that way too. With my dad working so much, I'm sure it was a lonely job and had to stay home. But what a consistent presence in our lives when we were growing up. She's involved with schools. Like all of my friends loved her. Like she was really integrated into our social relationships and at the same time encouraged sport parents in this other direction. But I have no idea what their dreams were for me. Like I honestly had the freedom to choose and go in whatever direction I wanted. I never felt pressure to have a certain amount of success or to do this or to do that. They always just kind of said, "Hey, what is it that you want?" And they supported it. 100%. And I realize how rare that gift can be. And I'm thankful for that.
Yeah. Now, you have two siblings, Dennis and Margaret, and they're both younger than you. What was something that you can share with us when you were little? You remember holidays or a birthday or something of the sort, summertime?
One of my favorite memories is, again, we're all in a New York City apartment, and we don't go out a lot, but so there's lots of playing that goes done in the apartment. And we had this game called the Milky Way. And it was this like little 4-wheel, like little truck that we would have. And whoever was in it would just run through like an asteroid. And you had to jump from bed to bed or chair to chair and not get hit by this truck. And if you got hit, then you became the asteroid and you were the Milky Way. And I don't know why, but that's just one of my favorite ones. And my feels got a lot. But I love that game.
Now, you went to Mount St. Michael's Academy High School, and your interests there were cross country and half mile, but you also had some interesting classmates. Who was that?
Yeah, you're talking about Sean Combs, Puff Daddy, P. Diddy, who actually had that name back in the day. And, I think he got a little bit of teasing about it, but like, who's laughing now, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But good guy. He was a runner. He was fast. He was a sprinter. So it's just very weird to kind of always see him blow up and be like, what was Sean doing? Like, what's going on?
Yeah, here it goes. Now you leave the academy and you go to Birmingham University and you get a BA in psychology. Now, what attracted you to that line of education?
Well, at Binghamton University, upstate New York, and you'll get this flavor from me, like it was always high achieving. And so we had some limited finances. So I knew I had to go to a state school. I couldn't afford to go to Boston College or Northwestern or something. So stayed limited. And I said, okay, well, what's the best school in the New York system? And they were like Binghamton. So I'm like, okay, that's where I want to go. But I always knew I wanted to be psychology. For whatever reason, like I remember being in 6th grade, I think it was, and I'm reading Freud's analysis of dreams for fun. I'm just like, this is really cool. Even in elementary school, like with my enemies, like the guys I didn't get along with, we'd have fights because in New York, you actually fought.
Oh, yeah.
And so growing up that way, like if they had a problem, they'd still tell me and we would walk around and I'd still talk with them. And then, 3 weeks later, there'd be another fight. So I always had this relationship with like, I wanted to understand people and things of that nature. So when I knew I was going to college, I just knew psychology was the right field. I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do in it, but I knew that was it. It wasn't until the very last class that I took in college that I knew that sports psychology was actually a thing. And then we'll talk a little bit more probably about my experiences, but I was like, oh, this has definitely got to be it. And so that's what propelled me forward into the sport and clinical realms.
Now you leave Bingham and University and you got 2 years off and you end up at the Illinois Institute of Technology, and there you get a PhD in clinical psychology. Yeah. And by the sound of it, you were on the move as to where your career was going to go.
Yeah. So very intensely. So I found out at the end of college that, oh, wait a minute, I got to pivot. I want to do the sports psychology thing. Took the 2 years off. And when I went to graduate school, IIT was fantastic because I knew that I wanted to go beyond the performance enhancement and the mental training. I was still really passionate about helping people at the deepest levels. And honestly, I didn't want to refer out. So if somebody had severe performance anxiety or something like that, I didn't want to have to be like, well, that's outside my mental training. You need to see a psychologist. So I got my degree in clinical psychology, and then I dedicated all of my clinical studies to the things that athletes would suffer from the most. So I got a specialization in pain and injury rehabilitation, did a lot with disordered eating and some substance use work, and of course, a lot more with stress and health behaviors. So I was really able to prepare myself for whatever an athlete might go through, whether it be personal, professional, or health or sport.
But you go first job after graduation there in 98 to the Pain and Rehab Center in Chicago. What was your initial work out in Chicago at the center there, and how did it begin to form what you were now going to do the rest of your life?
Yeah, so the reason I had done some training there earlier, and it was a meaningful experience. I was like, well, what is the biggest thing that athletes go through? And I was like, well, every athlete gets injured. So I really wanted to delve into pain. But I actually fell in love with that population too, because it was things that we could do right away for people who suffered with chronic pain, fibromyalgia, and headaches. And so I was able to do that, as well as Dan Kirschenbaum is an old colleague of mine and mentor, and he was a sports psychologist in Chicago at the time. And so I was able to kind of do some work with him at the same time. and get additional training in that. And so it was really just a really fantastic year before I moved out to Grand Rapids, where I'm at now, where I could really develop that pain and injury specialty while also staying in touch with performance enhancement for athletes.
Connect with us on LinkedIn. Be our friend on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram.
Whether jumping out the MP or jumping on the app.
You are listening to Vince Cortese. We just want you to leave your mark.
Now, yours is helping you overcome performance anxiety, and we got a number of talking points that I want to bring up. I think this is the performance anxiety, depending on the individual, is probably like a fingerprint. You know, the idea of the nurse is there just because you want to perform and do well, but the performance anxiety, some manage well and some don't. So how do you reach these athletes to get them to perform higher?
Yeah, so I love that you're able to bring this one up, because performance anxiety is maybe while a clinical term, what I want your listeners and watchers here to get is everybody's got it. Like, if you're going to, what I don't like, here's the thing. What I don't like about the way psychology is often done, or the way we talk to our athletes, is that they think they have to think positive and feel confident so that they can play well. And so they get into this struggle, and we all do, about wanting to live in this happy zone. Let me ask you a quick question. Vince, you got 4 basic human emotions. What do you think they are? Hate to put you on the spot, but just think about it. The 4 most basic human emotions.
Happy,
Yes.
sad,
Yes.
nervous,
Yes.
angry.
That's it. So all of our complicated emotions, they found through some really sophisticated biological studies, it comes down to these 4, and all of our emotions come out of that. But wait a minute. Happy, sad, mad, and scared. Oh my gosh, how many of those are positive? 1.
Yeah.
And here we are trying to live in 25% of what it means to be human all the time. And this is really promoted out there about the pursuit of happiness. We got movies and books and everything else about how you should be happy. You deserve to be happy. And all of that is crap. That's actually not true. Like, 3/4 of what we feel is unpleasant and useful. Like, our anger lets us know that there's something wrong. It gives us energy to fix it. Our sadness lets us know we love something, and when it's lost, we seek it out again. And the nervousness, I don't know about you, but it keeps me alert and it protects me from doing stupid things.
Yeah.
So what I teach my athletes and my clients is how to navigate that, and how to have a different relationship, to give up the struggle of fighting with it, so that you can actually focus on what you need to do and perform with the anxiety. Because if I'm going to help you get to the Olympics, am I supposed to teach you how to not be nervous about that? That sounds unrealistic. Doesn't it make much more sense to learn how to bring that nervousness with you and harness it so that you can actually perform with the emotions that should be there?
Now, you have methods of which you used. Is it, as I was saying, it's probably as individuals as a fingerprint. So you get down to, do you use a structured method where you question them, and then depending on how they answer the questions, you get into their self-development and their mental health? Or how do you move forward with their self-development?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I, of course, respect the individuality of everybody's situation. So I want to say that we would always lead off with sort of compassion and look at somebody where they're coming from. At the same time, the research has found that this term called psychological flexibility, it covers really like close to 55% of what is needed for growth and health and to change. And so what is psychological flexibility? Very quickly, it's these 6 components that I really focus in on: teaching athletes to be present and to see themselves as sort of like, to be able to get outside of themselves and observe what's going on, as opposed to being really entrenched in it. More specifically, I teach them how, when they're thinking things, to not necessarily believe what they're thinking, but rather watch their thinking and see if it's working or not. And then teaching them how to accept the emotions that they must feel. Things like we had said before, like if you're going to, train, you have to become used to the idea and willing to feel pain in service of it. We talk about track, right? And we talked about the 800, in that second quarter mile, you are not going to feel good. You have acceptance skills. And then on the other side, we clarify their values and what's important to them and help them take committed action towards that. So those are the 6 big components that I have a bit of a structure or at least a format that I work with, but it's all about then helping that individual. Where are they weak? Where are they strong? And their life enhances their quality of life.
Now, how
Well, that's a
much?
process there, isn't it?
Well, I'm curious now, as they're going through this part of the process, when we're on the athletic field, we have good days and bad days. So, and
Yes.
then when you're referencing 2/3 of our emotion towards all of this can be negative, how do you develop where they begin to build this mental strength and become a more, I don't know, consistent in their performance and mindset?
Oh, thank you. Love that word. Big word. That is like at the hallmark of what I'm helping people do. Like they might want to come in and be confident, for example. A lot of them say that, oh, I'm not confident. I want to be confident. Well, why do you want to be confident? Because I can't control that. And they're not going to be confident all the time. If you put me on a court with Michael Jordan, even at his age now, like I'm going to lose. So what am I going to be confident about? So we know that in sport or really in life, there's a target that you want to focus on to help your performance in the moment. Like in this conversation, whatever else is going on, I need to be in tune with you and you with me. And that's really all that matters. And as long as I can direct my attention to the present moment with what I'm doing, that's it. And my feelings about it don't really matter. If I've got insecurity, if I wonder like, oh, the last thing I said sounded stupid, or maybe I'm talking too much, maybe I'm talking too fast. If I get all involved with that, then I'm going to be distracted and not hear your question and not be able to address it. So when I begin with my performers, I start off having this discussion by really, through their own experience, them illustrating that they find this to be true too. Your sport doesn't care what you think or feel. It's the results that matter. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't care about what you think and feel, but we can't make that the priority. And then we establish, what have you done to try to make yourself feel better? Let me ask you really, I do this with athletes, so I'll do it really quickly, but I'm going to ask you 5 quick questions. First thing is I want you to remember where you went to high school.
Okay.
Now I want you to forget it. Where'd you go to high school?
Went to Quaker Valley.
Well, now see, I told you to forget it.
Oh,
And you're looking at me like, well, but I can't. And of
oh,
course, but how many times do we tell people forget the last play? Like we give these instructions that actually can't be done. Or how many times have we struggled with that thing that happened to us 2 years ago and it's still nagging at us, whether it's a breakup or an event or the anger about what that person did to disrespect me. And when you get all of these memories, we have to learn a different way that forgetting them or just pushing them out of our head doesn't work. Let me give you another one. I won't go through all 5, but this one is my favorite. I'm going to offer you $2 million. If you can, when we're done with this podcast, go out and the next stranger that you see, fall madly in love with him or her. Could you do that?
I think so.
No, of course not. Like even if it's your celebrity crush, you might feel a lot of things, but deep, passionate love for somebody that you don't know. Now you could fake it. You could hug them, kiss them. You might be able to marry them. You could say you love them, but could you control your feelings? No, of course not. Yet how many times are we told to control our feelings in sport and in life? So I do a more elaborate exercise like this where I just help them establish the unwork is all about having to adopt a positive mindset, this or that. And when I can help, really this is where the acceptance really comes in, help them through a lot of experiential exercises, understand that this is the way it is and I can prevent my suffering, but I can't prevent the pain. And then tie it into my values about saying, so if you really want this, you're having a hard time, you're feeling negative, you have a big baseball game. Well, what's really important to you? And how do you intentionally start to develop your focus to keep putting it back on what's going to work and the why it's important? Because if you can do that, then you're going to have the best outcomes. Now, you'll never be perfect at it. So we have to, again, embrace the idea that this is going to be a continual process, not only for the game, but for the rest of your life. But the more often you do it, like how many games have been won and lost by one play? Like if you could get 2 plays better, if you can make, 3 mistakes less in a game, it's going to make a tremendous difference.
Yeah, mere moment. Those are hard to handle too mentally. Now I have a question for you because your line of work is becoming more and more prominent. And I remember watching games specifically in the NCAAs where they would reference that they had a team psychologist on the bench. I think the first one was when it came to my attention when I was younger was they had a priest on the bench. It was probably a Catholic school. And they're like, they had their lucky nun or their priest, the father on the bench there. Notre Dame was good for that. And so on yours now and where you're at, are you on the sideline during the event or is yours coaching that's done behind the scenes and in practice and around the administration arrangement?
It's honestly all of those, and it really varies. It depends on the team, the organization, their desires, what's helpful or what isn't. So I've worked with teams where I've just been, separate from the organization, and they really appreciate that because they want the confidentiality, be sure that they don't really, see anything outside of that. They just want something outside of their sport. So I have a lot of individual clients that will see me outside of that. I do a number of presentations where I'll come in and I'll just work with the whole team or the whole athletic department. And that's really fun because I get to meet and teach a lot of people in 1 hour. I can help, 500 people at once. When I work with the Grand Rapids Gold, the G League team, that was great because I was able to do all of it. So I'd be on the bench, so I could see them, and if they needed something in the moment, I'd be available. Most of the time I was just there offering support, and observing and seeing what they were behaving like, and just observing it so I could use it for workshops that I would do with them or individual sessions that we would have, again, either on the facilities or away from the facilities. But when I work with a team like that, it's sort of like I've got to be really agile and kind of say, hey, if I can only talk to you for 5 minutes in the locker room, I'm there. If we can do an hour session, out away, we'll do that too. But pro sports is challenging, so you're flexible. The main idea is having a relationship and knowing that I'm trustworthy, I'm competent, I'm good at what I do, I care about them, and everything that we do, again, whether it's in the forum or not, is confidential.
Now that brings up another question. Now, you're known as teaching a high achiever mindset. I'll ask you a question on this one. When you're given these assignments, when you show up and they don't know you, what has been your worst situation that you had to rebuild their mindset and the organization that you were now in front of?
The worst, so the most resistance that I felt is another way to rephrase your question.
Or the most work that would need to be done because their mindset was just not where it needed to be a high achiever.
Well, I'll give you two different answers. One of the first one about the most resistance was earlier in my career. And as you had said, it's fortunate that people are more accepting of it. But I know that people were kind of thinking like, hey, what's this guy doing in here? Is he going to analyze us all the time? I had some people that didn't want to see me because I was, at the time I had worked at a hospital and they're like superstitious. So they didn't want to even be near it. I remember somebody being like, look, you're in the pros now. They're like, they're already tough, as if like mental toughness was something that you either had or didn't have. Yeah, I know all these people are tough, but are you tougher than the guys in the other locker room? And so that was the other thing. Well, there's nothing wrong with me. I don't need you, doc. And it was sort of like, well, I don't want to operate on that level of pathology. Like nobody that I've ever met has maximized their mental and physical health. So if from that athletic or achievement mindset, I really wanted to kind of nurture that and say, hey, your mental game is as much of your physical game. And this is something that could always be improved. So with that being said, on what's been the most difficult challenges is that it has, again, surprised me. I remember some high level players that I couldn't believe that they were pros with their mental game. Like how blessed are some people physically? I'm like, oh my goodness, you got this far and you don't know these basics.
Yeah. Wow.
There's been a number of pro athletes I've worked with where I'm just like, I thought I had to bring out like my A game and I had to do the best, most highest level of psychology. And I was teaching them things I was teaching my freshmen in high school.
Oh, wow.
And so, yeah, I think so. I was as marveled at how gifted some people can be. And I'll tell you who sometimes suffer the most is the most talented ones. Because when you get like a first round draft pick in the NFL, for example, I imagine they've dominated the competition for a lot of their youth. And they get used to relying on their talent. And then they get to the NFL and all of a sudden everybody's as physically gifted and they don't know how to work. And I'm not saying that they haven't worked. I'm sure they've worked more than the average person if you're there. But now at the highest level of the game, there's this unknown level of dedication and sacrifice and focus. And it's a hard adjustment for people. Like no matter how good you were in college, when you get to pro, or I'll even say no matter how good you were in high school, when you get to college, it's these major jumps where I find my athletes struggle the most because they were a big fish in a small pond and now they're in a bigger pond and they're like an average size fish and they have to learn how to work. And that was what will often get people booted out. They won't be able to compete. They won't be able to win. They won't be able to keep their stop. And a lot of it has to do with whether or not they've learned how to work. And mental training is a big part of that. They have to pick some of that stuff up and start to say, I have to develop these skills and react to these situations differently.
If you have a story to share, tell us, how are you going to leave your mark? Contact us. Leave your mark with our host, Vince Cortese. Be our guest.
What are some of the activities that you give them to work on their mental health?
Sleep is by far number one. Like if we could take our whole podcast, I would talk about that. So before anything else, sometimes I won't even do mental training with an athlete. Like the question I ask everybody is, how much sleep are you getting? And if they're getting like 5 or 6, I literally refuse to do any other type of mental training until they're getting up at least 7 hours of sleep. And then if you're going to be, again, a college athlete or a high school athlete, I mean, we know our average adolescent non-athletes are supposed to get 9. So I'm like, I've rarely met anybody who's getting 10, or unless you're talking about, again, Olympic level athletes or pros who are at the top of their game, they already realize this and they're getting 10, 11, 12 hours a night because they realize how beneficial it is to their mind and body. So I would honestly say that sleep is the number one performance enhancer and the number one goal, that if you're lacking on it, I mean, I've had some athletes come in and 50% of their problems go away when I'm getting them to get a good night's sleep. And it's a hard thing to do. I understand why people can't do it on their own. We've got phones that keep us up at night. We've got early morning workouts and gym times and late games and practices. So there are challenges to it. And I think it's harder and harder now. Netflix alone is just like, drawing you into one show after another with a endless, I could watch a whole season in a night.
Yeah.
So it's a big challenge, but for my performers out there, there's nothing better that you could do than that. So I would start off with sleep interventions to help them get more sleep and better quality sleep.
So then based off of the physical and mental rest, does this help like their focus issues and where does that then play in on we're elevating their level of confidence now? They're starting to understand your mindset and they're working their way into it.
That's it. Exactly. Sleep ends up being the foundation. If your brain and your body are not rested, you can only go so far, no matter what I teach you, no matter what skills. And so once you're getting that bit of refreshed, then you can start to use the skills. So you're right. Your focus and your emotional regulation will automatically be better when you get more sleep. And then after that, we can get more into specifics where I'll kind of say, okay, well, what's your biggest challenge? Let me know what gets in the way, and we have a strategy to overcome it. Maybe again, for the podcast, the fastest one that I think could help everybody right away, if I could share it, is keep this mantra in your head. If I want to win, WIN, I have to focus on what's important now. And this is a question that I ask myself all throughout the day. And what's important now hits the elements of where do I need to intentionally put my attention, because 50% of the time our mind is on something automatically that doesn't matter. So this is a process that we have to keep bringing it back. I have to know what's most important right now in this moment, not in my life or in general. So if I were going to ask you, Vince, what's important now to do a good podcast, what would your answer be?
I would say definitely engaging my guest. I mean, my level of awareness with you and what you're offering, then that would probably be what's most important.
And that's good. I like the way you had said it. You're focusing on you said guest. So at first I was like, no, not general, but you mentioned me. So like what's important now, meaning right now at this time in this podcast, you're saying me. And so then I would encourage you to focus on, so what are the behaviors that would implement that? Because we can have a lot of great intentions. It's like, oh, to love my mom. Okay, well, what would that mean right now? Well, if mom is in the other room cooking dinner, it might mean I would go in and I would help her, peel the potatoes. That would be an act of love, and that's what's important now. And then I go in and I engage and peel the potatoes. So again, as performers, we always want to move from sort of an emotional state or how I should feel or what my attitude should be and say, so what would that look like? So if you're going to engage me, and you have been, how do you do that? What are the behaviors that you are focusing in on?
My mindset is what you're talking about and how we can bring out more of the conversation. So like, we're talking about the high achiever mindset and focus and confidence. So I want to speak in terms of what those things mean to you and how what it is you do helps other people in those arenas.
Okay. That's a lot of thinking, isn't it? So now I love that we can work this out, because this is the number one distraction that my performers go through is, again, you're exactly right. Intellectually, 100%. Like if you wrote that in an essay or something, that would be right. But you can't do that when you're getting a 1 second pitch in baseball. Everything you just said, there are about 4 pitches that went by in your head.
Even with a pitch clock.
Yeah. So ultimately, I think what your answer is, because I've seen you do it, is, hey, I lean in I'm making eye contact, and I'm listening intensely. Boom. That's what's important now. I lean in, I make good eye contact, and I listen intensely. And that's it. It's nice and simple. And if you did that during this whole podcast, we'd have a great podcast.
How we
And it's,
doing? I wasn't expecting to have a therapy session.
I can't help it. I live like
I'm thinking, how am I doing?
And yeah, no, but this is a wonderful illustration because I know it's a wonderful exercise. And again, I hope people go out there and actively use it, but that's what it looks like in very small behavioral terms, what's important now. And you won't stay there, right? Like you had said, now I'm wondering, am I doing a good enough job? Our mind will always come in and talk and comment. And that's where I go back to the idea of other unhooking skills that would take a little bit more time. But that's where the meat of where I'm working and helping people out is to teach them how to, again, unhook from the distractions, unhook from the fears, unhook from the thoughts, and get refocused back on what's important now.
And win. Now, let me ask you a question. You reference like mom in the other room and go and help her do potatoes. So that had nothing to do with sports. So in general psychology, how much of that applies to just life and sports and or business? What's the tie over?
You're nailing this podcast because that's a perfect question. It's exactly the same. The psychology of performance can be equally applied to sport, health behaviors, business deals, art, quality of life. Because it all comes down to those components that I had said about clarifying what your goals are, taking committed action towards them, and unhooking from the unpleasant thoughts and feelings, all the while being present in the moment and being able to observe yourself as you're doing it. So the nuances of it, the specific goals, the behaviors, the challenges, the content of all of those things will be different between sport and different sports even and business, but the process is very much the same. And it's been a blessing to see how I'll work with an athlete, for example, and they will tell me that automatically by accident, without even talking about it, their grades are coming up or their relationship with their girlfriend is better. But without even trying to apply it in other places, they find the usefulness of interacting with their own psychology in the same way. And it applies to very many contexts and areas.
Dr. Eddie, this is wonderful. I could talk to you all day. Your resume is immense.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It's it's really I'm as passionate about what I'm doing today as when I discovered it, 25 years ago. It's 30 years ago. Oh my God, I stopped counting. I don't know.
It's getting scary when it starts going quick like that.
Yeah. So I really do appreciate it, and I am grateful to still be able to do it and to still improve on my game. It's just fun, and when I can see people get unstuck, and when I can help them move from inconsistency to consistency, I think it just makes the world a better place. Yeah, I mean, I'm going to do this. I'm never going to retire.
That leads me to my final question for you, and is how would you like to leave your mark?
Well, honestly, like this is the big thing this year is I've loved what I've done individually, so I started doing presentations, and because then I could reach more people, like talking to a company of 500. But then that started to frustrate me, and I said, I want to impact more people. Like the things that you and I touched on here today, like I want to share this with the world. Like big goals, but I'm like, there are millions that I want to reach. So what I've done is I've created success stories. It's a membership, an online platform where I dive into all the things here. And what's great is that this is a new platform that's going to allow me to teach all of these things and walk with people on their journey to scale. And that's how I honestly want to leave my mark. I'm just really getting into it now. But it's going to be my life's work from here to the end. And I'm excited about it. And I can't wait to help people get unstuck and reach their best selves in sport and in life. And I don't know, like I'm losing my words about it just because I've got so much heart that's invested. Like I'll cry when I die when this thing really blows up, because I think it can. I feel underutilized for as much as I've done, as you've been saying.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not there yet, and I really believe that success stories is the platform. I'm glad that I've kind of finally found and been able to put it together.
Well, I believe that you're a trailblazer in hearing that, hey, Doc, we didn't need your kind around here, and there's nothing wrong with me, to where these athletes might need an individual like yourself for each one of them. 12 players on the bench, and we got 12 psychologists behind each of them. So your work is just really just beginning to bloom, and I can feel your excitement. I see it following the sports myself, being a sports lover from Pittsburgh. And I'm so grateful that you came on here and shared your story. Before I let you go, I would like for you to share with the audience where we can find your information and your books and where you'll be speaking next so that they can reach out to you.
Yeah, by all means, like the hub of everything is dreddieoconnor.com. And if you go there, I would highlight go into the membership tab. That's where you'll find success stories. And again, I'd love to walk with you on your journey. It's a really cost-effective. That's the other idea, is that I wanted to make it a really. You can also see my social media links. I've got a YouTube channel with some free videos and things like that on there. I've got that Sleep Your Way to the Top workshop. So I mentioned the importance of sleep. It's just $37, I think. So it's really cheap for 90-minute workshop to get you having your best night's sleep tonight, so you play well tomorrow. And I've just got a bunch of resources on there. So it's dreddieoconnor.com. Join me in there. I've got a blog that I'm publishing pretty frequently now, a new way to get information out. I just want to help you. So come find me and I'll walk by your side.
That was excellent. Thank you for coming by, Dr. Eddie.
Hey, my pleasure. And
great work. Thanks for listening to Leave Your Mark today. Tune into our next episode of Leave Your Mark with Vince Cortese. Be blessed.
You just left your mark. Thanks for listening. Listen to more episodes on demand. Just click Leave Your Mark with Vince Cortese.